It's no big deal. And Trump ain't win anyway, so it don't even really matter. You know what I'm saying? So
Do they agree with that last part? Do they agree that Trump didn't really win?
some of them don't. Some of them don't. I ain't gonna lie, and that's their problem. Really, I mean, it wouldn't have bothered me. I wouldn't have been happy if Trump won. Don't get me wrong. I did have some concerns about it. And I talked about this on the show that I admit I told everybody, I was open and transparent that I voted for Joe Biden, and I told them that it was a person who I called before the night before the election to convince me to vote for Joe Biden because I didn't know if I was going to do it or not. And that person just happens to be Maxwell Martin, who worked on Joe Biden's campaign. And I'm thankful and I'm confident in your vote and you telling me that this is the thing to do because you work so closely with it, and I trust not only your political knowledge but your character as a person more so than anything. So I just decided I was gonna ride with you, and I'm rolling with the winner. And if that's what, and if he did cheat to win, we still won. But I don't
Well,
believe it. I don't believe that that's
yeah,
possible.
I wanna go on the record and say that we didn't. But
Right.
Coach, that means a lot to me, and I think so much of what we've talked about this last hour has come down to, well, are we going to unite or are we going to divide?
Right.
And uh, whatever you want to say about Trump or Biden, go issue by issue. I think any honest person who's looking at the two of them, Joe Biden is a uniter and Donald Trump is a divider. I mean, look at the primary.
Right.
Uh, Bernie Sanders supporters were not excited to vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden united extremely strong support from black women and black voters in general who won him the primary, and who, by the way, won us the United States Senate a few
For
nights
sure.
ago.
Yep.
He united that with Republicans who were tired of Trump, with conservative older Democrats who felt the party had gone too far left, with really excited young activist supporters of Bernie Sanders who did not want to vote for Joe Biden. But he found a way to bring all those people together, and Joe Biden got more votes than any person in the history of the United States running for president. And if you look at our country right now, the thread is run thin, and there's a potential for us to get torn apart. And I don't think Donald Trump is the person for this moment, even if you like him. I don't think he's the person for this moment, and I think Joe Biden has the potential to be the right quarterback.
Right.
To
Right.
exchange your metaphor from earlier. But
Yeah.
it means a lot for you to say that. And if any of my bosses are listening who paid me all that money to get people to vote for Joe Biden, Coach Reed's on the record that I got at least one. So there you go.
No doubt. And you went out in the field and you talked to these people who you said didn't even know that there were an election coming. You talked to people who were upset about Trump. You know what I mean? You met all type of voters, and you coached other people who met all type of voters and came back to you with information about it and data that you could look at tangibly and see that where these results came from in the voting process. While on the other hand, these people who think that the election was stolen are going off random websites and other things and complaining about the justice system that they didn't complain about. The only other time I heard these types of people complain about the justice system was when OJ got off. I ain't heard nothing else.
And they had it pretty good for the 30 years in between. No
Yeah,
complaints.
you know what I'm saying? So they ain't
Well,
complaining about all these other
let's
people.
debunk let's
Go ahead.
debunk a few rumors in case anybody's listening, because there's a few like common misconceptions that we can knock out.
All right. This is
Um,
this gonna we're gonna make a segment out of this. This is Max debunking rumors from the Trump campaign about election fraud. Go ahead.
okay, first, the main one. So this election was always going to be a challenge because of the coronavirus, and you had a bunch of states who were doing mail-in voting for the first time. So there were always going to be challenges and things that needed to be fixed. Like that, like any free-thinking person should be able to admit that, like, when you're trying an entirely new system, in the process of 5 months, there are going to be things that need to be fixed. So let's focus first on the biggest, I think, thing that I hear and read from Trump supporters is like, why did it take so long? Why were votes dumped at 3 a.m.? we all remember election night, and we got the Florida results in 30 minutes. That's because in Florida, you can start counting early votes before election day. So if you vote, Coach Reed, and you vote early, that vote can be counted, and then right when election day starts, it can be run through the machine and you're in.
Right.
In these other states, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Republican-led legislatures, at the direction of Trump, passed laws to delay where you can't count those votes until election night. And so a mail-in ballot that could have been counted and could have been ready to go was delayed. So that's the first thing. Like, it wasn't the reason it was taking. A lot of people say, why did it go so fast in Florida? It's not an accident. It's intentional. They were preparing those votes earlier.
Right.
The second thing is this idea that there are voters, appearing out of nowhere. The really cool thing about being in a campaign is you realize that all of this information is public. When you vote early, the state releases your name and address. By the way, people out there, if you're voting, it's public information that you voted, not who you voted for, but that you voted. That's how campaigns get your name to call you, because it's all public data.
Right.
So when you vote early, we get, oh, Malcolm Reed's voted early. We're not going to call him anymore. We're not going to send him any more mail. We're not going to do any of that. So all of the people who voted early, whose votes got counted later, we knew they had voted because the state releases all that information publicly. So when the data gets dumped at 3 a.m., I don't even want to use the word dump because it has this negative connotation. When the data gets counted at 3 a.m., and it's like, where'd all these voters from Milwaukee come from? You can every campaign, including the Republicans, can see the exact amount of voters that have already voted. So they knew those votes were coming. They knew those numbers were there. And the Trump campaign is 1 for 59 in lawsuits since the campaign happened, and it's because there's no standing here.
Right.
The third big thing you hear is like, well, how come all these votes that were dumped late were all for one candidate? Well, if you have one candidate telling people to vote by mail and to vote safely, and you have one candidate telling people coronavirus is fake, don't vote by mail because it's fraudulent, they're going to try to steal your vote and throw it away, those people aren't going to use vote by mail.
Right.
So a lot of people looked at it and said, well, all the vote by mails went to Democrats. Well, of course, because there's only one campaign who was trying to get people to vote by mail.
Everybody was saying that from the beginning, that the Republicans was going to vote in person and the Democrats was going to vote mail in. Especially with, it's always like that in other elections too, more so. I mean, as far as what I've heard, but with the corona being an issue, it was just like, okay, we're not going in and vote at all. So
it was a real mistake,
Huh?
It was a real mistake, because here's the real mistake that the campaign made there. If you're a campaign, you have to spend whatever money you spend is divided by your amount of voters, and that's how much you spent to get each vote.
Right.
And so if Malcolm Reed at 123 Peachtree Lane is my strongest supporter, the last 2 months of the election, I'm still sending him mail. I'm still trying to get him out to vote. You have to spend money. But if you get your voters to vote early, and then I get the list from the state that says Malcolm Reed's already voted, I don't have to send him any more emails. I don't have to send him any more letters. I don't have to send an organizer to his house. I don't have to send a volunteer there. I don't have to send a paid canvasser there. I don't have to hang something on his door. So all that cost, time, and energy is done. So if you're the Democrats in all of these states where you have 50, 60, 70% of the total vote voting early, we got all those people out of the way. In the last month, we're focusing on a smaller pot. Whereas Republicans said, actually, don't vote early. It's fraudulent. It's rigged. And so all that time, extra time, had to be spent on the top end of voters. And then when it comes to election day, they have to appeal to everybody, where we could really narrow in. And by the end of the campaign, so I was in North Carolina for the general election, which we ended up losing narrowly. We won the governorship. We lost the Senate race in the presidential election. We were calling people, and they were like, we've heard from you 10 times today. I promise we're going to go vote. And it's just because, we were hitting every target, and we had such a great campaign where we'd gotten everybody in the door. And by the way, telling people voting is fraudulent is not a good idea, because you just lost 2 Senate elections because people didn't believe the vote. So people somehow simultaneously believe that government is incompetent and that government has the facility to overthrow a presidential election, and they can't do both, right? So
That's what
yeah,
I was saying. That's why I was tripping about the whole thing about storming the Capitol, because you got a sitting, yet it's coming to an end, but you got a sitting Republican president and you got a sitting Republican majority in the House and in the Senate. Why do you believe that your own leadership gonna fail you as far as the election? Like, you think that the Democrats can steal the election from a Republican president and a Republican Congress? That's just
right.
I never that's logic that doesn't add up in my brain. Because I figured you got the leadership, you already in the door. If you feel like they cheating, why don't you just cheat back and win? But
Well, and they do cheat. Well, Coach Reed, they do cheat. They've been disenfranchising black and brown voters for years, and
right,
I think, and Coach Reed, that's a great question. If they're cheating, why don't we cheat? But that's what they're saying is, well, we're cheating, so why wouldn't they be cheating as well? It's a guilty man's mentality. And you look in Georgia, Coach Reed, Georgia, some of the worst disenfranchisement in the country. It's a deep South state. You have a Republican governor. You have a Republican Secretary of State, and you still lost. And then you have Trump turning on his own. And you know, it's sad in a way, in a human sense, of somebody's loyalty being betrayed. But Trump has only loyalty to himself, and so he'll turn on anybody. But again, seriously, if you think the Democrats could steal an election in Georgia with that leadership, you're mistaken. And by the way, if you look at the numbers from the general election, Atlanta is such an incredibly organized city. Atlanta, if you think, oh well, big city Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms stole the election. The vote in 2020 in Atlanta was very similar to 2016, very, very, very similar, and 2018 in the governor's race. Because Atlanta's so well organized, it's hard to do better than you've done in the past. The story of 2020 was we did so much better with rural voters, with suburban voters, and rural, especially rural and suburban Black communities, which are organized so incredibly well in Georgia. That's where we won. And all of those places have Republican county commissioners, Republican election officials. And it, again, you don't want to give this stuff too much attention, Coach, but I do think it's important to reach out and let people know the facts about how the election happened. We won by thousands and thousands of votes. We won by the exact same margin in the Electoral College. Trump won in 2016, and it's over. And
it's over.
It's over. It's been over.
Right. It ain't over till them though, Max. It's like they truly don't believe that it's over, man. And I almost feel sorry for them, but I can't for real.
I do feel sorry for them because they're being lied to. But then again, I don't in a way. But I wish they weren't being lied to by people with a lot more money and power.
For sure. Well, Max, I think we didn't said it all, man. I really, really, really do appreciate you coming on and sharing that insight, because that's kind of gold right there. The last little segment of you talking about, the debunking and the strategy that goes into campaigning, that, most people don't really see all that. You know what I'm saying? They think they hear it in the watching the news and watching the media, but they don't really, if you're not really on ground zero and working with those people that closely, you really don't understand it. So that's some valuable experience that you got. I know it's going to be beneficial to you when you become whatever you're going to become, whenever you run for whatever office you're going to run for. I know that day coming. And just know that Chestnut Checkers will be supporting you and endorsing you as a candidate in whatever it is that you're doing. And Malcolm Reed definitely for sure will be endorsing you as a candidate.
Wonderful. Well, I got my first endorsement already. I'm ahead of the curve.
You're ahead of the curve, man. Just one at a time. Well, you got a fiance too, man. So you definitely got another one.
I'm checking the box. Well, Coach, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully it's not the last time. And look, once you go to McKinley, you can do anything. It opens the entire world to you, and you know all about that. So I'm so glad to have you as a friend and a mentor for all these years, and it's really cool to be on. I appreciate it.
No doubt. Thank you so much for coming on, man. And I'll definitely be in touch with you.
Yes, sir.
Till next time, Max. I'll see you later. All right.
That was fun.
It was fun.